welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining this session. We have organized this webinar as part of one webinar series that we are going to do regarding related to SAFE. And we decided to choose this one, the first topic, to talk about compliance, regulation, regulatory change, and the context of Agile. This is the first webinar we are going to do. This topic we split in two sessions. The first one, we are going to talk more about the process, how the process and the teams should be organized to bring more, let's say, agility on your compliance issues you have. And the second one we're going to do is going to be about the product, how to launch, how we can launch very fast and easy way to manage compliance when I launch new products to the market. Both our webinars are related to SAFE, means that we're going to talk about how SAFE implements some practice to help you on this. But also we are going to talk about some implementation we have done some clients from my innovation perspective, what we are doing to help them to increase, let's say, to be compliant with the many different regulations they have. The agenda for today is basically, I have set 4 topics here. I want to start talking a bit about the context, what's going on in terms of compliance, the regulations. And then we're going to talk about how the requirements and what we need to do to meet agility, when I merge these 2 topics together, what's happened. And then we go for the process itself, how we build solutions, making sure that you have your regulation in place. And the last one is about how to organize the teams, right? But before I start, let me just give you a background. I don't know if everyone knows about why innovation. Why innovation, we are, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are a few years, 8 years here in Singapore and also in the region, working across all the countries like China, Hong Kong, you have Shanghai, Beijing, and people around Asia, helping organizations to change their process, to improve, to get and to implement more agility. Usually covering 3 main areas here. We are talking about business innovation, bring more innovation to these and launch new products in agile way, let's say agile adoption, but also human-centric means that we are really trying to solve real problems for our customers. This is how we work. This is what innovation do. As a part of this work, of course, we deal with large and big and complex organizations. Then that's why this context of being compliance topic to discuss is in place. Let me just give you just a quick introduction about myself. My name is Lucas Souza. I came to Singapore 4 years ago. But in terms of Agile, I have a more focus now as Agile coach to help organizations to adopt agility. But when you talk about compliance, I can tell you that I start to work and look into regulations, ISO, CMMI, Six Sigma, and also other different types of regulatory requirements since 2001. It means that I have very long experience in terms of when you talk about conduct audits, right? To check if your process, your product have met all compliance requirements. I have some background, and now I bring this as an opportunity to share a little bit my experience on both worlds, right? Compliance and regulations in an agile context. As part of innovation, of course, I'm not here just to do some propaganda, just to tell you that we have many clients here in the region. Majority of them on the finance sector, and many of them are banks, big banks. And you also should know that one of the most regulated industry is the finance industry. Right? When you talk about banks, we are talking about really a lot of different regulations that you need to be compliant with to be able to launch digital product banks. Let's say this way. Right? And being this, I want to start this webinar talking about this context. I know that it's very, very common to talk about let's be agile and launch products fast, and then every 3 months you can have new products or new release launch on the market. But what is the impact? What's going on the compliance side, right? I can launch let's say, I can open a digital bank, let's say Lucas Digital Bank, right? I can just build one application, and then I can say that, let me open a bank, right? To be able to operate, I need to follow and be compliant with many regulations that is required to launch my business. And this is also the context that I want to bring you. It's not that easy to do it. And I want to bring this context, but also I want to ask this question back to you, right? Let me ask you, we have here menti.com, right? Let me make this a bit easier for you. Let me put on the chat, on the Zoom chat, just in case you can have here, right? Let me put directly here to everyone. You can join me on this kind of a survey here. What are the main challenges, right, that you or your organization are facing when you talk about compliance, right? We know the challenge in terms of agility. Let's talk about compliance. What are the main challenges today? Let me see if we can capture some insights from you. What are the main challenges you guys are facing today? Let me put here the screen. Okay. Okay. Let me give you just maybe 1 minute or 2 minutes, right? You can join me on this Menti and just raise here, just text is open question. What are the main challenges you guys are facing? If you, okay, compliance is a silo department. Good. The government is still use fast machines. Yes, it's true, still. Long and tedious validation process. Yeah, thank you so much. It's good points, right? Compliance is waterfall. Then I want to know who raised this card, right? Yeah, there is many items here. I want to bring some comments on those. Let's give you a little bit more time to see if we can have more. MAS regulations, internal audits, requirements, and having internal, external, third part from your competitors, can be also from your clients, means that compliance and audit process is really heavy, and you need to be prepared for that. Yes. Okay, we managed to capture a few here. Let me give you one little bit. Yeah, compliance process are tedious in long time. Yeah, this was one of the reasons why I changed my career from be auditor, lead appraiser, working certifications to move to Agile, to be a consultant. Yeah, thank you. I think we got it right. Nobody likes audits, and when you talk about regulations, regulatory requirements, is every time is a nightmare, but is needed. And the main issue that this is what I want to bring here for your attention is regulations are not stable. As everything that happens on the business, on the market, and everything that also happens on your organization, your customers, they're changing mind every day. Regulators are changing regulation, norms, and procedures, standards every day, right? This is one report I bring here. In average, around the world, we are talking about 257 changes in regulations that happens every day. It's a daily alert. I'm not talking about yearly, right? It's a daily alert. I just bring some numbers here for you. MIS here in Singapore, just last year, have promoted 366 change on the regulations. Most of them, of course, is still related to COVID, but yes, this number is increasing. And also, 106 of this change is directly targeting banks or financial sectors, right? We are talking about 106 changes on the regulations in just 1 year. And in 2022, this year, we already have 49 changes happening, right? All this change somehow is going to impact the digital bank products or operations you have, right, on your bank and the systems. And then you need to get prepared to absorb this volume of regulations and regulatory change that happens in a monthly basis, right? And another number, just to bring for you a little bit more context on this, right? I want to bring you the attention, what kind of change, right? Here we have another way to see, right, that in 12 months, how companies, business are investing to deal with the change, right? For example, on the SIFI, this is a big, large bank of financial companies, right? If you see the largest one, 34%, is about cyber resilience, cybersecurity, data protection, right? Those regulations are changing very fast to protect more and more customers and data. And also companies are struggling to remain compliant with the new regulations that have been put in place. Right? Just to highlight the main change, right? The two in finance and cybersecurity are the top ones. The question that I want to ask you back, right, for reflection, how we deal with it, right? This is something that is happening as my client is changing mind. Regulators are changing mind. What we do when we talk about customers, we are making my process and my organization more agile, then I can react fast and answer those changes that is required. When you talk about compliance and regulations, it's also the same situation. It's changing fast and even more often now. And the organizations need to have agility enough to deal with it, right? This is the context, right? Just to set the, right, where we are. Let's just move a bit further, right? And now how Agile can help in this, right? We know that as you also, I'm still receiving some cards on that Mentimeter that I share. Yeah, we know that it's tedious, long, complex, right? Expensive, right? Deal with regulation. And if you deal with regulations and regulatory changes in waterfall way, we have even more problem because you cannot afford to have 6 months, 1 year, 2 years project to implement this, the change on the systems and the operations to be compliant with the change that's happening now. The government is also expecting, and the regulators is also expecting organizations to be compliant faster, right? Because they know that there's a risk on the society, it's a risk for customers, and then they want companies and business to be compliant as fast as can be done. And then this is a problem. If I'm getting, usually what we see in many organizations, we do verification, validation at the end of your project. I think if you can just reflect a bit, how many products or projects you have participated, you join, that let's say security test is done at the end of the project, not during. It's the last thing to do. This is a nightmare, right? Because you discover that you are not compliant when you don't have more time to solve the problem. It's already too late. I'm not reading this slide. I want to move straight forward for this. Somehow we need to bring these two, right, things together. Regulatory and compliance is needed. Without this, you cannot launch a product. Then we need to have quality, we need to follow specifications, you need to save and to have objective evidence, you need to have your quality management system in place that provide the process, how you should operate with metrics and indicators that tell you how healthy is your organization. in terms of compliance, in terms of standards, and also in terms of your internal standards if you have. In the hand, on the right side, you have the Agile manifesto. Let's say that working software over comprehensive documentation means that I need to have more often releases and products than documents and specifications that are taking forever to get incomplete. This somehow gets in conflict, right? There is somehow I expect to have specifications for everything. On the other hand, I'm asking my development team to have a working software by tomorrow. Okay? And then we need to align these things. We need to bring this concept to work together. This is where SAFe can come as a solution, or maybe one approach that can be used, bring some tools, some elements that can be help you to connect those dots, right? Because again, we cannot afford to launch products without compliance. There are three main concepts related to this, right? I think you may know a bit about this, but we have verification, validation, and compliance. What a difference. Verification means that I have a process, I'm following that process, right? Means that I'm doing during the verification, I'm doing how I'm supposed to do things. Validation, I'm building the right solution, means this is what my customer expect. I'm solving their problems, right? This usually is a customer feedback, acceptance. And the last one, you have a compliance. Compliance means the regulations, the standards, and everything that is applicable that need to be met, right? We need to have evidence to show that. I want to give you just quick examples here, right? When you talk about verification, in SAFe, we have what you call solution intent, right? The idea is to build one database, or you can use a content management system like a Confluence, or you can use a SharePoint, where you put the standards and things that guide your team how to do things. The second component from SAFe, we are talking about the solution itself, the product when it's demonstrated, right? When you do a demo and you get feedback, my solution is working this way. This moment you should bring regulators, means that auditors, if they join your demo, it's going to save a lot of time for you because they see how your product works. In the quality management system, the QMS, that sometimes we exchange S for X because it's all different regulations should be integrated, right? Should be consolidated, right? Your QMS is going to be the center point where if you need to know what regulations we are following, you go there, you know, right? Can be statutory, can come from different customers, can be organized by region. We are working now in one of our clients. We have projects to be released across different countries. In this case, we need to be sure that we are following the regulations, the local regulation from each country, even if it's the same application. We put everything as part of your QMS. And then everybody that's working on that application, on that systems, they're going to be aware, right? This is very important to understand, right? When you centralize, we can also plan better. What I want to say is, when you know what process, standards, and let's say regulations we need to follow, you can design your solution to match those regulations. There is two concepts very important here, right? When you talk about requirements, if these requirements come from the regulators and you have some requirements that need to be met, few of them is going to be related to your process, how we build software. Every software has to be tested. This is your QMS, right? Your software needs to ensure that the data is protected. Yeah, this QMS. The solution itself, sometimes we have specific solutions that need to be provided. For example, I need to be able to do audit on your data. And this sometimes becomes a feature, becomes a functionality on your system that need to be built, tested, and validated as well, following your TMS. Right? These two elements, they need to work hand to hand. Right? If you forget one of those, you are going to be in trouble when you talk about compliance. And the problem here, if you remember, right, Waterfall, we plan everything in advance, we work for months, and then we release. Many times. And we are facing something similar right now in one of our clients. In 6 months is too long. That regulation that you are building one system specific for those have been changed, sometimes multiple times during your project execution. We need to be able to deal with a change on the regulation. We need to reprioritize, reorganize, and maybe rework in things that you have done before, but react fast, not too late to be able to maintain that. Waterfall is really painful when you talk about regulatory requirements, because we hope that is going to be frozen, will not change, and then something happens and the government comes with new regulations. They need to change in a forced way, with cost and additional budgeting that sometimes we don't have. Okay. Being back to the solution, how safe organize this, right? In Agile community, I think I have worked with different frameworks, but the only one framework that I see they have a very strong process and structure to address compliance issues is SAFE, because they really put this as part of the framework. They are very clear, bring elements, as I mentioned to you, for example, here in solution intent with the demos and the built-in quality. They put elements to ensure that your process is also taking care of the standards and regulations that we need to be compliant with. Right? Basically, we translate what are the different regulations and requirements that we need to be compliant with in different processes that are going to be integrated in how you do things, providing the evidence and everything that you need to show that we are compliant with. It's a journey. It's not a single project, because as the organization gets growth and you extend your business for the regions, more and more regulatory requirements is going to be included in your QMS, right? And also some regulations become obsolete, need to be removed. It means that this process to keep these elements updated, this work have to be done. Sometimes we just look on the Agile process, forgetting this, that also process and requirements need to be also met. Basically, this is how we see, right? You don't think in two different elements, right? Have to be part of your journey. I want to bring here just one another view, right? But Lucas, you mentioned that this is very abstract or generic. Let's get a little bit more detailed view in how these are implemented, right? We all know that in Waterfall, you check your compliance, if you are conform with the standards at the end of the process. If you see here, right, that your certificate that you are compliant with the standards comes at the end of the process. In the incremental approach that we are talking about, the Agile approach, this is going to build together with the product. Every time you build something, all the conform and or non-conform items have to be checked. For example, let me give you one example. One of the requirements, regulatory requirements, ask us that every single transaction need to be logged and be available to be audited. We can conduct audit at any time, right? It means that that information need to be available somehow that provides some report or something that can be use it as evidence in case one auditor asks you to provide. Means that every single feature on your application, you need to see, I'm recording the data that is needed, and that data is protected. And then for each feature, you need to repeat this question. What's happened now is for a few clients, we are putting this as part of your definition of done. If you build a feature, ensure that the data is recorded properly and be available to be audited later, and also encrypted and protected. And this becomes also part of your definition of done, if it's applicable for all features, or your acceptance criteria when you talk about one specific one. And this is going to be included and be part of the team routine, right? To ask, are you looking for audited queries that we are going to use later? Are you encrypting this data? Is required, yes or no? Becomes part of the process, right? Not to check after I have a product and then let me see if we are meeting these requirements. No, this becomes part of the team routine to check. And when you do this, we collect from the different source what requirements we need to do. We need to be compliant with it. We build the solution, and the demo we check if you are really getting the evidence that is required, right? Every single demo is an opportunity to give you feedback, how we are in terms of our compliance with the regulatory requirements. That is how the product should be built. And I'm not talking here about one specific team, right? If I have 10 teams, 10, let's say, squads or agile teams work in the same product, they also need to share information across them, right? The solution of when we talk about the solution train for your artists, right? They need to share the same requirements when you talk about regulatory requirements. When you do this properly, quality compliance, regulatory feedbacks, and also regulatory compliance, and also improvements on your KMS going to be captured and inspect and adapt at each demo that we do. Right? Can be API demo, can be just a system demo. In both cases, you have opportunity to check. And one very common comments on this is it's very tricky to say where we are in terms of compliance, right? Are you ready to launch this product? Yeah, and with this approach, you can have a kind of a real time at the end of your demo to know what requirements we are compliant, what requirements we are not, and then what is the action plan required. Right? On the business side, they also can decide, okay, I'm going to take this risk. Even I have 2 or 3 requirements that are not compliant yet, but time to market is critical to us. Let's launch anyway. And then we deal with the compliance issues later, right? They can do one assessment and evaluate how much risk they can assume and decide what to do next. But this can be provided at any time. All right, just to bring some topics here. Another concept and very important for SVP1 is we know that when you talk about regulations, there are many, let's say, people, departments, right, that need to be involved. I think one of the challenges is a silo, right? Usually they have, organizations have one department that reports directly to CEO, that have no contact, no collaboration with anybody. They are completely isolated, and they are working as internal auditors or your compliance team, as risk management team, then just conducting audits time to time in different products, in different departments. And this is like a nightmare sometimes, because when they say, oh, Lucas, we are going to conduct an audit on your department next week, and then I need to get ready for my auditor to come, right? It's not really sustainable and consistent approach to be compliant with. what we bring in safe is compliance, and this should be part of your value stream. When I deliver value for my client, be compliant with the standards and regulations that my client wants for that product, right? Is part of the value stream. What I'm saying is, when you talk about to build your team, we are going to get people from different departments. That includes operations, compliance team, test, security, to be part of your art, to be part of your agile release train. I'm working in a program now to release this system to Malaysia. And then one of the questions was, we cannot have a product owner from Singapore that doesn't understand the regulations that have been placed in Malaysia. Product owners should come from the Malaysian operations, that they know what regulations they are following. And then we force a bit to, okay, we need to have the right persons to understand what is the requirements and how to build the product. If you are not getting the right persons and you're not organizing your agile release train properly, then later it's going to be very challenging for you to be able to launch that product. Sometimes we discover that we are missing some critical regulatory requirements or compliance issues, really too late, right? And when you talk about regulatory delays, usually we have some penalties, some, let's say, fees that is really, and can really put your business in risk. Yeah. And how those things are integrated, right? I want to explain, I think this is the best way to explain is, there is not one single tool, right, that can be used for all of this. You need to really combine, for example, all regulatory requirements, right, all different regulations that also part of your, let's say, solution intent, because you have some standards there, need to be included as part of the backlog. When you write stories and you set features, you need to know exactly what regulatory requirements is going to be applied or not applied to them. And then we can anticipate. Also, when you build your roadmap, how are you going to build those? You can make strategic decisions in terms of when and how you are going to ensure that your product is compliant with, right? Roadmap plus your backlog are the two elements how we are going to really execute the solution intent that you have designed initially. And then you plan, you do, and you check. And PDCA cycle, also including some visibility in terms of those. I have one project that I think my colleagues can confirm. It's we are facing a lot of delays in one of the projects just because one of the requirements, right, that it was very simple, right? I mentioned audit query. It means that I need to have a feature to be able to do search and auditing on the transactions that you have executed. It's about a payment history, right? I need to be able to do audits to see if all transactions have been succeeded, any issue, how we do turnaround. And that feature was planned to be built at the end of your project, right? And then we realized that, oh my God, we need to really put under every single transaction to log those transactions in one place that you can do audit. And now we have not a one, but we have a 200 plus features to change. It's not about one report. It's about to change features that have implemented before. If you know this in advance, you can plan and do together, progressively, incrementally, every single feature already providing the reports you need. Right? This is just one quick example. And just closing in terms of content, I just bring here some key elements. Kanban and backlog is how we can get visibility and also prioritize and make decisions in terms of regulatory and compliance items. Features have to be designed somehow considering the requirements, regulatory requirements that is also applicable to them, right? Those two have to be, you need to be considered. Roadmap, timeline, strategy, how we can put in place one strategy to minimize the risks across the time. Solution intent becomes your database where you have all information that are required for your team, right? All different regulations that need to be applicable as a knowledge sharing database that everybody can see. PI planning and PI demo becomes your PDCA cycle, right? We plan considering those. We do demonstrations to show evidence and get feedback, including sometimes auditors to be part of it. And we close with the inspect and adapt loop, right? The idea is to continuously improve how we are doing things, right? Basically, those elements, all of this, right? Kanban, backlog, features, roadmap are elements of the SAFe big picture that all, when you talk about SAFe, was designed somehow to be implemented in an agile way, and that can help you, support you and your organization to be compliant with the different regulations you have. Okay, just to finalize here, I think in terms of a content, this is what I have prepared for today. I know that is a heavy topic. Usually it takes longer than that, but I was given to me 45 minutes, then this is what I have prepared for. Just to close the session, basically, I want to say that if you want really to know more about this, right, one of the best ways is to join one Lean Portfolio Management training. Usually it's a 3 days class, right? In Y Innovation, we do in 4 days sometimes because it's a bit heavy. And in this training, we really go through how we are going to really implement your QMS and how you can ensure that the compliance requirements are well managed on your organization.